Today we'll be looking at lessons 1.2 and 1.3. In fact, not just looking at them, you will start studying them. You'll start to gain your first knowledge of some of the basic building blocks of the Spanish language, specifically personal pronouns and the first 5 of the 60 most commonly used verbs in any language for that matter, but you'll be learning them in Spanish, of course. As you learn, by the way, these are the gestures you'll be learning. As you learn these new personal pronouns and these verbs. The gestures are not used in actual everyday life. They only exist to help you retain the vocabulary, because as you do a motor activity, as you perform an activity with your hands or a movement with your body, and you say the word simultaneously, your recall, your retention is greatly enhanced. So for the personal pronouns you'll be learning in lesson 1.3, you'll be learning yo, tú, usted, él, ella. Yo refers to, it's the subject you use, the subject pronoun you use when you refer to yourself. Tú is when you're speaking to another person on a familiar level. Usted is when you speak to another person, showing them particular respect, maybe because you don't know them, they're older than you, they're an authority over you, you're showing respect or deference for them. Él refers to a male, about whom you're speaking. You're not speaking to him, that's tú. You're speaking about him, él. Or speaking about a female, whether it be a girl or a woman, ella. Okay, those are the gestures you'll be learning for the personal pronouns in lesson 1.3. In lesson 1.2, you will have learned these first 5 verbs. The first is vivir, hacer, escuchar, lavar, decir. So very, very important. There are two critical things which you must do to succeed in this class. One is repeat and repeat and repeat. When I want you to repeat, do so. You have to be an active learner. Being a passive learner where you basically watch me and expect me to teach you because as though I could do it by myself, that won't work. You've got to get engaged. You've got to imitate me, my gestures, and you have to repeat what I say. Okay? One more thing before we actually go to lessons 1.2 and 1.3. Comprehension. You're going to see, once we get into the lessons 1.2 and 1.3 themselves, you'll not hear any more English whatsoever. The video that starts off lesson 1.2 and the one that starts off 1.3 is entirely in Spanish. It's critical you understand that you would not so that you would not become tense or anxious, that I do not in any way expect you to understand much of anything that I'm saying for that matter. The things which are most critical, I will find a way to make them abundantly clear to you. I'll show you what I mean once we get into the video. And I think that's probably an appropriate thing for us to do right now. Let's go to lesson 1.2 together. And in 1.2, I'll do some examples from each section with you, since it's the first time you're studying a ULAT lesson. 1.3, I'll simply talk about the activities you're to do in each of the lessons, and then once you finished watching this introduction here, you can go and work on those lessons independently. So here we go, lesson 1.2. Okay, so how do we get to lesson 1.2? Here we're within day number 2 of the Spanish portion of the independent section of the website, and you see after watching this particular video, which is point number 1, you see go to lessons 1.2 and 1.3 and perform the activities, etc. So by clicking on 1.2, that link there will take you directly to the lesson itself. And here we are. The first section of it is simply an explanation in English and many other languages as to how to use the ULAT lessons. It's really what I'm explaining to you right now, so you don't need to deal with it. Okay, so here you see a red bar right there, which indicates there's a separation between this section and a new section down below it. So in the first section, you see the image of my face, and that's, you remember from lesson 1.1 that is the symbolic direction indicating that there's a video for you to watch. So we'll click on it, and we'll go to lesson 1.2 in just a moment. Here we go. I'll click on the arrow to get it started. And you begin by listening to one of my sons play the trumpet. And this is an overdub, so he's playing all the different trumpet parts here. Buenos días. Me llamo Steve Nesbitt. Mucho gusto. Bueno, hay 2 cosas que ustedes deben hacer para tener éxito en sus estudios. La primera es que ustedes deben repetir y repetir y repetir lo que yo les digo. In all that you have just watched right there, probably much of it you didn't completely understand what was being said, but you may have gotten a sense just from the gestures, the idea of repetir, repetir, repetir. You saw me do that a little while ago in this video. Repeat and repeat and repeat. You probably got a sense for some of what I was expressing. Certainly the basic expression, buenos días, and me llamo Steve Nesbitt. Maybe those are expressions are familiar to you. But remember, I do not expect you to understand all that's being said in the course of the video. The things which are most important, I will make very clear. For example, in just a moment in that video, I'm going to be saying, ustedes van a aprender cinco cosas en esta lección. Vivir, 5 verbos. Vivir, hacer, escuchar, lavar y decir. And as I'm expressing that to you, the fact that I'm pointing out 5 different elements probably indicates to you that there are 5 things you need to learn in the course of watching this particular video. So even though you don't understand everything, you might start to get a glimpse as to where you need to put your focus. So we're going to go from the first section to the second section. And you'll see as you enter a new section, every time you'll see the symbolic directions that tell you what you're supposed to do in this section. And this, as you may remember, tells you that you're to repeat. This gesture, or this symbolic direction here tells you that you're to perform the gestures with your hands. And so as we click right here on this link that will take us to a video, and this video will present the first 5 of the 60 most commonly used verbs. Remember to repeat when you're asked to do so and to use your hands. Okay, let's take a look at it.
Vivir.
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 Vivir. Now imitate the gesture. Vivir. Now you see a close-up
Vivir.
of the pronunciation. Repeat.
Vivir.
Vivir. Now you see a
Él
statement.
vive en un apartamento.
Something to do with he and an apartment.
Él
it looks
vive
like.
en un apartamento.
Él vive en. You don't need to
Hacer.
repeat the sentence. Hacer.
Hacer.
Hacer. Do the gesture. Say the word. Now repeat.
Hacer.
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 Él hace la cama.
So he's doing something to the bed. Hacer has something to do with doing,
Él hace la
doing
cama.
something to the bed. Él hace la cama. Now,
Vivir.
use your hands. Vivir.
Hacer.
Hacer. Okay, so repeat, do the gesture. Here's a third verb. This is the last one we'll look at.
Escuchar.
Escuchar. What's that mean? It's pretty evident this time, I think. This verb is
Escuchar.
pretty straightforward. Escuchar. Do the gesture. Watch the pronunciation.
Escuchar.
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 Él escucha música.
Él escucha música. Something to do with he and music.
Él
I
escucha
think it's pretty
música.
evident what he's doing to the music there.
Vivir.
So do the gesture. Vivir.
Hacer.
Hacer.
Escuchar.
Escuchar. So within this section here, you're being presented with a vocabulary, these 5 verbs for the first time. Next section, you see by this this symbolic direction that you're simply to listen to what you hear when you click on these different images with the red borders. Here, first of all, is the first of the verbs we learned.
Vivir.
Vivir, whatever it means. Now let's take a look at these pictures. These provide a context for what this word vivir means. It looks like I'm on my front porch. Shows the country as a flag. Here's an apartment building. This is a house. Has something to do with a residence, home, but it's an action, I think, and so it's probably live, potentially. If you click on the pictures,
Yo vivo en los Estados Unidos.
you can hear the word vivo, which sounds like vivir.
Él vive en un apartamento.
Vive is similar to vivir.
Él vive en una
Again,
casa.
vive, which is like the word vivir, something to do with home or potentially to live.
Vivir.
Okay, etc. So in this section, you're seeing the still image of the verb you just learned. You're hearing how it's said. Then you see it in 3 different or you see it used in 3 different contexts to help you start to focus in and to zero in on the specific meaning of that verb. Okay, we'll scroll down to the next section. In section 3, you're told that you're to perform the gesture and you're to say the word that corresponds to that particular image. And so this, by the way, by this point, if you watched all the way through each of the 2 videos in this lesson, the one that starts the lesson off, the instructional video, and then the video to which we just referred when we were looking at the presentation of these verbs, you would have seen these verbs presented and you would have heard them repeated maybe 15 to 20 times. And so by this point, there's a good chance that you could perform this gesture correctly and say the word before you even click on it. Vivir. Maybe you don't know exactly what it means yet, and that's fine, but hopefully you could perform the gesture and say the word vivir. Now I click on it, and let's see if I was correct in the way I did the gesture.
Vivir.
Vivir, and in how I said the word. That seems like I was accurate.
Vivir.
Next one is faire, wrong language.
Vivir.
Hacer. The next is hacer. I click on it.
Hacer.
Yes, I did the gesture correctly, and I said the word correctly. Hacer.
Hacer.
And then I go to the third one. I think this was escuchar. I think I have a pretty good idea what this word means now. Escuchar.
Escuchar.
Escuchar. Yes, I did the gesture correctly, and I said the word correctly as well, etc. So that's what you do in this section. In the 4th section, or maybe this is the 5th section, in any case, you are to say the word and you are to perform the gesture. Now this is a race, as you can see. It's going to open up to a video PowerPoint presentation, and I will I'll maximize it for you in a moment once we start it. And try to say the word and perform the gesture before you hear the correct answer provided for you. Here we go. I think that's vivir.
Vivir.
Yes. Hacer.
Hacer.
Got it. Escuchar.
Escuchar.
Etc. It begins very, very slowly, but as you get down to the end of the presentation, watch how much more quickly it goes.
Hacer.
Here we go. Escuchar.
Escuchar.
Right away I had the answer. Decir.
Decir.
I'm going to come up with the answer before I hear it. Lavar.
Lavar.
So you see it goes much, much more quickly at the end. Okay, so that is all for that particular section. Let's go back now to the end of 1.2 and move on to lesson 1.3. Here you see the link at the bottom of the screen taking me to 1.3. So up to this point, I've been presented with 5 different words. I think they're actions. They were vivir, hacer, escuchar, lavar, and decir. I'm starting to get a pretty good idea as to what they mean, although hacer is still a pretty troubling one, a pretty vague term, but I think in time it will become more evident. Okay, 1.3. 1.3 presents us with the personal pronouns, and I'm not going to go through examples from each of these sections. I'm simply going to point out or emphasize what it is you do in each of these sections. The first section, as you know, you click here, you're going to see a video in which I actually teach the lesson to you. The second section, you're to, just like you did in the last video where you were presented with those 5 verbs, you are to repeat the word as you hear it, and you're to perform the gesture. In the third section, again, just like in the lesson 1.2, you're going to perform the gesture and say the word before you click, and then you'll click and see if you were correct in the way you did the gesture and in the way you said the word itself. You notice by the way the different colors here. See, these are all blue. I wear a blue shirt for a personal pronoun. In the previous lesson, I was wearing a red shirt. Those are for verbs. Okay. Next section. The fourth section, this is the same kind of an activity, except this time I'm going to mix together the personal pronouns and the verbs, and you're to see if you can come up with a word rapidly, or if you can come up with a word at all. So here it would be tú, and I click on it and I can confirm. This is decir. I click and I can confirm both the gesture and the pronunciation of the word are correct. And in this next section, this is the timing. That's a little more special, so I'll show you how a timing is handled. You see it says 35 seconds. That means I am to go through and to say all of these words. I don't need to perform the gesture this time. Just say the word. I'm to say all of these words within a period of 35 seconds. If I can't do this activity in 35 seconds, it means my knowledge of the words is not solid enough yet, and I need to go back and review the previous lesson and the beginning of this particular lesson. So I'm going to click on the stopwatch to download it. I'll click on Run, and remember I right mouse click and choose Always on Top so that the stopwatch will always be visible even when I click on this other window. And I'll make the picture smaller so that you can see all of them at one time. And let's see if I can do this in 35 seconds. On your mark, get set, I hit start and go. Usted, escuchar, yo, tú, escuchar, vivir, ella, lavar, decir, él, tú, lavar, hacer, tú, decir, hacer, ella, hacer, yo, usted. Stop. Now, notice two things. First of all, at this point, one would not expect you to be able to recognize and to say these words. But after you've gone through the lesson and a half that precedes this section, you will have a very good idea of how the words are said and a sense of their meaning as well, and of course the gesture you're to perform. Secondly, notice that I didn't hurry. I just went at a regular, steady pace. It should not be necessary to race and to stress out as you're doing this. If you have a good enough knowledge of this vocabulary up to this point, you should be able to advance at a regular pace and still have time to say all the words correctly. So I had 12 extra seconds left at the end of this activity. Well, last of all, there's another race at the bottom in which you'll see all these personal pronouns and verbs mixed together. You'll have to try to say them before you hear the correct answer given to you in that particular in that video. Well, that's it. Let's just quickly go back to the explanation as to the activities that you are to perform in this particular day, which is day number 2. I'll go back to the Spanish portion of the online instruction, day number 2, and it looks like I've finished. I've watched this video, and now, I haven't finished. Now it's your turn to go to lessons 1.2 and 1.3 and to perform them independently without my help, and to see if you are able to retain for the next time we meet each other, yo, tú, usted, él, ella, vivir, hacer, escuchar, lavar, and decir. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.